Hello everyone, my name is OceanMud and I'm the Monsters Faction Ambassador. So you've chosen to play Monsters. Good choice, my friend. In this video I'd like to show you some of the basics of Gwent and how to play the Monster Starter deck. Let's get started by going inside the deck builder and looking at any synergies the deck has. Then I'll take you through a couple games with some actual opponents, and we'll finally come back and see what upgrades we can do to the deck. Okay everyone, so here we are inside the deck builder. Just as a preface, while this guide is for newer players, there's a basic assumption of knowing what the cards do, but what I'm going to go ahead and do is give you the synergies between the cards, so that way you'll know how to use them whenever you're playing an actual game. So Dagon of course summons the Impenetrable Fog or Torrential Rain. Dagon has many different archetypes to play. He has Relic, Death Wish, Consume, and today we'll be working with the simple Fog package. So what I'm going to do is, let's get started by looking at the bronze units. There's 3 different types of bronze units that should be made aware, and this goes with silver and gold units also. You have proactive units, which you play down as early and often as possible. You have reactive units that deal with the opponent's side of the board, and you have variety fill cards that are used for thinning or different situations of such, like clearing weather. So starting with Fiend, you can see he's just an 11-point no ability play, so that would be a proactive type of play. You also have Ancient Foglet. Ancient Foglet is going to be the core of the deck. Ancient Foglet has synergies between Vader Maker, it has synergies between Woodland Spirit, and with Dagon himself. The reason why is because it is boosted by 1 at the end of the turn if there's Impenetrable Fog. So Ancient Foglet will be your absolute first play. There's rarely any circumstances where you would not want to play Ancient Foglet first, because the sooner you get this engine down, the more points you'll get in the future. You have Wyvern, which deals 5 points to an enemy, so that's a reactive play. You have Arrakis Drones. This is your variety type of card used for thinning. You'll play this after you play the Ancient Foglet as well as the Fiends. You have First Light. This is your variety card because it's used for thinning and it's also used for clearing weather. Impenetrable Fog is a variety card because it's just put in the deck right now and we'll upgrade it later. Petrie's Filter, that is a variety type of card because it's not really proactive, because in order for it to be proactive, you would need to be able to play it early. You have to have 6 units here. So moving on to the silver cards, Efreet. I will show you Efreet though. Efreet deals 1 damage to a random enemy after it summons 3 lesser Efreets. That's their ability. So this is a reactive card because you have to have an opponent board in order to use it. Roach is a variety type of card. It's used for thinning. Vader Maker, as I stated prior, has synergy with Ancient Foglet because it does summon the Impenetrable Fog. It's kind of a variety card. It's reactive, it's proactive, and the Alzur's Thunder is really important to take care of engines. You have Doo-Doo, which is a copy the power of an enemy, so that's more of a variety type card. It's kind of reactive, but we'll probably be upgrading this card later. Commander's Horn is definitely a variety type card. Boost 5 adjacent units by 3. You have to have a board in the same way that you do with Petrie's Filter. And you have Manticore Venom, which is a reactive card. Deal 13 damage. Moving on to the golds. The golds are Geralt. So Geralt is a proactive card. Triss, deal 5 damage, is a reactive card. Woodland Spirit spawns 3 wolves. These wolves are token cards. It's reactive. The reason why it's reactive is because, along with Vader Maker, you want the opponent to actually commit to a row before you play the Fog in order to get maximum damage. Royal Decree is a variety type of card. You use it to pull any gold units. And with the synergies, just be aware that Roach has to be in your deck to be pulled by these gold units. And Royal Decree would not pull Roach because it actually plays a gold from your deck and not from your hand. So those are the synergies with the deck. This is a pretty straightforward deck. We have quite a few cards that we'll upgrade later. But when in the right hands, this deck could have some potential devastating effects if the opponent does not have an answer. So let's go ahead and get started and play our first game and see what this deck can really do.
Humans have no place in Broccolon.
Okay, so here we are versus our first opponent, Ithne. The most important thing to keep in mind with this deck is that it is reactive, so you want to have a few proactive cards as well as reactive cards in your hand. You can see we have the reactive cards with the Wyvern. We don't really have any proactive cards except for the Fiends. We're really looking for the Ancient Foglets here. You want to first get rid of any thinning cards that you have. That will be the Roach. And since we don't have 2 Arrakis, we keep this in our hand, and we'll get rid of the Fiend next. And since we have 1 Ancient Foglet, we don't want to draw the 2nd or 3rd Arrakis drone, so let's go ahead and keep this hand.
You annoy me.
So starting off, we'll probably play a proactive play, because although we could do a reactive play with the Wyvern, that doesn't set up our engines. So let's go ahead and set up our engine with the Ancient Foglet. We can see the opponent's committing to the back row. So since the opponent is committing to the back row, that means we want to do the fog in the back row. We'll go ahead and do the Woodland Spirit, and we'll do the Woodland Spirit in the back row. The reason why we're choosing Woodland Spirit over the Dagon is because you want to be able to thin out that roach.
Have strength, my love.
Since we have our proactive card down, now the opponent has destroyed it, but since we had our proactive card down, now we can start doing our variety as well as our reactive plays. So let's go ahead and do the Arrakis drone for thinning. And so you want to try to get everything in 5 rows.
Let's enjoy the weather.
Or 5 adjacent units, so that way you can maximize your commander's horn.
The storm is coming. Let's enjoy the weather while we still can.
So the opponent's doing a great job with thinning. Let's go ahead and put down the Fiend. I could have done the Wyvern if I wanted to. That's also an option. I just chose the Fiend. Okay, and we'll pass. So we won on even cards, which is fantastic. We do have the Petrie's filter, but we aren't absolutely sure we'll have 6 units on deck. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. So now with our golds, we have Geralt and we have Royal Decree, which can pull us Triss. So that's fantastic. We don't know what we will get with this. So let's just go ahead and play the Geralt now.
Any last words?
The reason why we're playing the Geralt now is because that's really our only proactive play. That's guaranteed. So we can go ahead and thin our deck of 1 bronze unit now, and we'll play the Fiend, because you're absolutely sure that you would have drawn the Fiend in that situation. So that's the reason why I played the Geralt first.
Who am I to kill?
So the opponent did a great job in neutralizing Geralt. So we do want to try our best to get out of the round 1 card ahead. So let's go ahead and start with the Fog here. The sooner we do the Fog, the more points that we'll get in the future.
They can hide, but there is no escape.
So what we'll go ahead and do here is we'll go ahead and Wyvern, which is a reactive play. And if you guys can see, I'm putting everything in the same row, so that way I can get full effect on my commander's horn. The opponent is cleverly making it to where my commander's horn won't get full effect. So if I did Vader Maker now, it'd be worth 9. It wouldn't be worth the 9 damage. It would either be worth 7 or it'd be worth 6 in case he puts nothing else to the front. We can go ahead and make a power move here with the Royal Decree. The reason why I'm playing Triss now is because we aren't sure in the future if we'll draw Triss Marigold in the next mulligan. So getting it out now is a pretty safe choice. And so we can go ahead and Manticore Venom the Villain Trentonmirth, because we don't want our units to be scorched. And so normally we would try to pass in this situation, but since we aren't sure we'll actually have 5 units in the future, it might be a good idea just to try to get our 5 units now with the Commander's Horn. And even still, it's not guaranteed what we'll have. So we'll go ahead and play the Wyvern here, and we'll play it on a 4. Because even though we won't be able to have maximum value of our units, it's important to play your cards as efficiently as possible. So having 3 units is more important than having 1 unit next turn with Commander's Horn, because we also have Petrie's Filter and Impenetrable Fog in the deck. So let's go ahead and Vader Maker now.
Now, how did that incantation go?
And so we have a choice. We can either Vader Maker and hit this. The only downside to Vader Maker and hitting this is if you were to Ethne into another Mandrake. But that should still be okay because it's the leader power for a silver card. So that's a fair trade for us.
There will be no negotiation.
Instead, the opponent decided to Scorch us, which prevents our Commander's Horn even more. Let's go ahead and play it though. and we're just going to try to take our opponent to the limit here.
Coexistence. No such thing.
So they played a spy, which draws them a card.
Rumors travel faster than the wind.
Why have you summoned me?
And so it was very close. The opponent almost came back, but you can see here that the power of this deck can make it to where you can even win 2 rounds in a row. So GG to my opponent. Great game. And let's move on to the second game and see what our next opponent has in store for us.
Onward, sons of Nilfgaard!
Okay, so here we are versus our second opponent. It looks like we're against Calvit in the second game. As always, it's important to get rid of the thinning cards. We don't really have any thinning cards, but we do have some filler cards with the Impenetrable Fog, because since we already have Dagon and Vadermaker, you don't really need the Impenetrable Fog. So we can get rid of that. We can also get rid of the Petrie's Filter. It is a 12-point play, but you need 6 units, and we aren't exactly sure how this round's going to go, so let's get rid of the Petrie's Filter. You don't want to draw the second or third Arrakis Drone or the Roach, so let's go ahead and keep this hand. Now, since this is the second game, I'll give you a second to decide what would you make your play be in this situation. If you said Ancient Foglet, that's correct, because you want to get your engine down first before you do any weather effects, because the opponent hasn't exactly committed to a row yet. So we do have the choice. We can either thin next, but it's probably a good idea just to do the weather effect. So we have a choice between Dagon or Woodland Spirit. I like to do Woodland Spirit. The reason why is because it also thins out the Foglet from your deck. You can see the Commander's Horn is working well with the 4 units we already have in the row. Before we do that though, it's probably a good idea to do the thinning from the Arrakis drones. And we'll go ahead and play that in the front row. So we're up by quite a few points, so it wouldn't surprise me if the opponent passed. However, with Calvit, they generally like to play Calvit before that happens. They took care of our engine, which is very smart. So what we can do here is we can do the Commander's Horn, because we aren't exactly sure if we'll have 5 adjacent units in the future. So let's do that now. Now we don't have any fog opportunities, no enemies in the fog, and we don't have any units that can move into the fog, so this is essentially not getting us any more damage. So it might be a good opportunity to pass.
I'm too old for this shit.
We are very fortunate though. The opponent usually likes to run Mahaka Males, which requires 3 units in each row. So let's go ahead now and we'll do the first flight. The reason why is because the bronze unit could be an Ancient Foglet, and the Ancient Foglet gains 1 point. This is a little visual glitch. Our Ancient Foglet is there. It's kind of hidden in the fog, so to speak, so don't mind it.
A bit of blood.
So this does take damage every turn. We could try to Vadermaker it, but it probably wouldn't die. So what we should do first is we should actually wait a turn for the Wyvern. So this takes 2 damage, and then we can end up doing the Triss Marigolds if needed. So we'll just do a proactive play with the Geralt to try to catch up.
Damn it.
We could also have done the Dagon if we wanted to. So depending if the opponent passes or not, we might just do the Dagon. We have a lot of reactive cards in our hand, so we have to be careful for round 2 if the opponent passes. We want to make sure that we have a proactive card that we can play as well. So we were up by 13 points. That is a good pass from the opponent. We're 1 card down, but typically if you win a round, you're going to be 1 card down, and the next round decides what we'll do with what we draw. We've already thinned our deck of the Arrakis drones, which is awesome. We thinned our deck of the Roach, which is awesome. The opponent did give us this card, which is the Lesser Guardian, from their own Guardian. So let's go ahead and mulligan that now. Now, if we did not have a proactive play, we would pass. But since we have the Fiend, we can actually play the Fiend first. because Fiend is our other proactive play besides the Ancient Foglet.
Back in line!
Now in this situation, we're a card down, so we actually have to do enough points to where we can maintain the card advantage, which means that we would be uneven. So let's, now that we're officially committed to the round, let's go ahead and start with Dagon. Now next turn, if I decided to do the Vader Maker, it would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 damage. And Vader Maker does 9 damage with Alzur's Thunder, so it might be prudent to do the Vader Maker next turn.
To work!
Okay, and it is important to kill this. We can either kill it with the Manticore Venom, or we could kill it over 2 turns. We could try with the Triss and the Vader Maker, or the Wyvern and the Vader Maker. Let's just go ahead and kill it now with the Manticore Venom. Because killing it with the Manticore Venom is the same amount of damage than if we killed it with others. And we're actually saving damage that way. The reason why I'm holding on to Ifrit is because you don't want the Ifrit to hit the middle target. You want the middle target to take as much damage as possible right now.
How can I help?
And there's the Mahakamels. So the opponent is doing a great job with their points. So we will get full advantage now over the middle lane. So let's go ahead and do the Wyvern. And we'll do the Wyvern on the front to prevent the Mahakamels.
You mistake stars reflected in a pond for the night sky.
So it seems that our opponent is playing a very high quality deck. So we're trying our best to keep up with them in any way we can. So what we can do now is we actually can Ifrit, and we can do it in the back row. The reason why I'm Ifriting in the back row is because sometimes opponents like to run cards that deal multiple rows, like Expired L. So this way, the Expired L doesn't get its full advantage. Now we do have 2 reactive cards left, which are pretty powerful, so I feel confident that we can come back in points, at least to go even on cards. The opponent is thinking hard about his play. And they decided to Mandrake. So we can go ahead and Triss Marigolds here.
I will not let this become a second Sodden.
And we can Triss this one. It doesn't really matter which one you Triss. And I'll probably be Vader Makering next. And typically you would want to get out of the round earlier than this, but because the opponent's been pushing so hard with tempo, we haven't had much of an opportunity. Alright, and we'll play the Vader Maker again in the back row. We didn't expect the round to go so long, but 10 damage versus 9 damage, it's pretty much similar.
I shall be your eyes, my lord.
So the Cantarella is actually good for us because it gives us an additional 13 points even though they draw a card. So we might stand a chance here.
As you wish.
The reason why the opponent played the Calvite in the first round is so they can actually hear the second round or the third round. Usually this would be a finisher for the third round. We are still up in points, so it was very good that we were able to Dagon at the very beginning. And we might just have another 2-0. Which shows the strength of this deck. The opponent really tried hard to out-tempo us, and I was actually nervous at the very beginning. But you can see the power of the fog. So if you try hard enough, it's not always reasonable to try for a 2-0, but don't always try to pass round 2. If you have proactive plays, you can stay in round 2 because you have the weather. So that's a great game by the opponent. It was very close. We won by 1 point. And so now let's go back into the deck builder. Okay everyone, so here we are back in the deck builder with our good friend Dagon. We just played 2 close matches. We did win 2-0, which shows the strength of this deck versus the opponents. And to make the deck even stronger, let's take a look at the synergies and see if there's anything that we can upgrade. We'll do this upgrade in 3 phases based on how many scraps you have. If you have a little bit of scraps, that'll be phase 1, medium amount of scraps, phase 2, and if you had all the scraps in the world, then that'd be phase 3. So let's start. Impenetrable Fog is pretty slow on its own. It doesn't really have a body, especially because we have Vadermaker, Woodland Spirit, and Dagon, which spawn Fog with bodies. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Petree's Filter boosts up to 6 random allies by 2. Random is kind of unique. We like consistency, and you never know if you have 6 allies, so let's go ahead and get rid of that as well. We'll replace these with Foglets. And so Foglets summon a copy of this unit on the opposite row whenever a penetrable fog is applied to an enemy row. So this is not only thinning, but it's even more points to a body that already spawns impenetrable fog. Moving on to phase 2. Mulligans are an issue now because of the Arrakis drones and Foglets, so let's go ahead and get rid of the Arrakis drones, and we will replace them with 2 recons, or reconnaissance rather, which lets you look at 2 bronze units in your deck and then play 1. So these are primarily used for proactive plays with the Ancient Foglet if you're trying to pull it, and if you need a reactive play, you can play their Wyvern as well. Just make sure that with the recon, you want to play it after you've played the Foglets, so that way these aren't one of your options. We have 1 more card, so let's replace it with Slizzard. Slizzard lets you consume a different bronze unit in your deck, in your graveyard rather, and then you play a copy of it from your deck. So let's say the opponent killed one of your Ancient Foglets, you can Slizzard the Ancient Foglet in your graveyard, and it will pull the other Ancient Foglet from your deck if you still have one. Now, in phase 2 still, let's get rid of the Doo-Doo, because Doo-Doo only copies the power of an enemy, so that kind of only gives you equal points. Let's play something that might give us even more points than Doo-Doo, and that would be Monster's Nest. Monster's Nest lets you spawn a bronze necrophage or insectoid and boost it by 1. So this is very powerful, not only for the points, but for the versatility. Monster's Nest can give you Barbagazi, which is carryover. It can give you Ancient Foglet, which is our core engine. It can give you Ghoul, which is 4 plus the Monster's Nest point. And it can eat the Fiend, which is 11 points, so that's a 16-point play. Drowner, if an enemy row is under a hazard and you move using Drowner to the enemy to the hazard row, it deals 4 damage. Otherwise, it deals 2 damage. But that's 12 points on its own. So, it's a very versatile, great card. And moving on to phase 3, if you had all the scraps in the world, you would get rid of Geralt and probably put in Tribute. So, Wispus Tribute lets you play a bronze or silver organic card from your deck, which means that not only is it thin, but you can play Manticore Venom as well as Monster's Nest with it. So you can imagine Wispus Tribute thinning out the Monster's Nest and then playing Ancient Foglet from it. So it's giving you 17 points plus an engine. Fantastic. And then we would replace Triss in phase 3 and probably replace it with Caretaker. Caretaker lets you resurrect a bronze or silver unit from your opponent's graveyard. So if your opponent played a Vadermaker, for example, you could resurrect their Vadermaker once it dies. You could resurrect an Ancient Foglet. It's fantastic. It can work in any situation, pretty much. So this is the deck. It was already pretty strong. This makes it even stronger. In the future, if you had even more scraps, you'd probably replace the Fiends with stuff and the Wyverns with things. But right now, this is a very strong deck, and it could probably carry you up to rank 20. So let's go ahead and take a step back and summarize what we've gone over in this video. Okay everybody, so we've taken a step back from the deck builder. To summarize the video, we took a look at the deck with its potential synergies starting out. Just remember that Ancient Foglet is your core engine of the deck. It goes well. It should be played first before you do your Dagon, your Woodland Spirit. Typically you would want to play Woodland Spirit to get out the roach with thinning, and make sure after you play the Ancient Foglet with the fog that you use your thinning of the Arrakis drones. With your mulligans, you want to not use all your mulligans all the time, because sometimes you want to make sure not to draw into the roach and the Arrakis drones. We played against 2 valiant opponents, very close games. With the passing, round 2, although I didn't pass, if you do not have proactive play starting out, do not feel like you have to play into the round. You can also pass and set up your fog for round 3. When we went back into the deck builder, we looked at the potential synergies and how to upgrade them. With the Foglets, those will help your deck out extremely, although you should not fret, because the deck as it currently stands could very easily take you up to at least rank 15. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to know more about the Monsters faction and its archetypes, head on over to my channel, and I'll see you next time.